On Tuesday, September 12, 2023, 18-year-old Ana Maria was home alone in Mexico while her family was on vacation. Later that evening, her mom received a heartbreaking message from her that said, "I can't live like this anymore. Goodbye, Mom." Then, 3 minutes later, Ana Maria was found dead. However, just days later, she had confided in friends and said that she was scared, and even warned them, saying, "If anything happens to me, you know who it was." So, what really happened that night and who was responsible? Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all doing super well. If you guys are new to my channel, welcome, bienvenidos. It would mean so much if you guys could join this YouTube familia. If you guys have already been subscribed for a while, make sure to double check if you're actually subscribed. In the last video where I mentioned this, everyone was like, "Oh my gosh, like I had no idea I wasn't even subscribed," and "Oh my gosh, I've been following you for 3 years and I just checked and I'm not subscribed." So I don't know if it's like a glitch with YouTube or what is going on. So just make sure to double check, and it would mean a lot to me if you guys could subscribe to this channel. It really does help out a lot. I also wanted to just say thank you all so much for being here and for just being so supportive of this channel. Today, we're going to be traveling to Mexico, where 18-year-old Ana María Serrano was murdered in her own home. We're going to go through what happened the night of her murder, how the investigation unfolded, and how her family continues to fight tirelessly to just make sure that her case doesn't get swept under the rug, and to also help prevent other families from suffering the same loss. So thank you guys so much for being here and for giving me this platform where I can raise awareness and share these very important stories. Before we jump into the video, I do just want to take a moment to thank today's sponsor, CovePure, for supporting this channel. Summer is finally here, which means that the sun is out, and with all this heat and extra sweating, we are drinking way more water, a lot more. Now, hydration isn't just about quantity, it's about quality, and I want clean, fresh, filtered water that's actually good for me. Just because your water looks clean doesn't mean it actually is. I searched up how many contaminants were in my city's water, and I learned that there were a total of 24 contaminants. The one that really stuck out to me the most was arsenic, which causes thousands of cases of cancer every year in the United States. Arsenic can increase the risk of heart disease, stroke, and diabetes. We can eat healthy and fill our plates with vegetables and fruits, but it's frightening to know that despite doing all of that, we can still be at risk of those health issues simply through our water. There are so many other health risks linked to unclean water, but thankfully, that's where CovePure comes in. It eliminates up to 99.9% of impurities in your water. It removes heavy metals, microplastics, forever chemicals, and arsenic. Their clear wave filtration technology is third-party lab tested and certified. The great thing about CovePure is that it just sits on your countertop and it works seamlessly. You don't need to drill this into your sink or get a plumber to install it. You just plug it in and you're ready to go. One of my favorite features is that you can choose any temperature instantly. So if I want to start my morning off with like some ice cold water, I can change the temperature to something cooler. But if at night I'm craving like a nice hot tea, I can also use my CovePure to make some tea without taking up my kettle. It's just so easy and so convenient. CovePure has preset or custom ounces options, which is a great way to remember to drink enough water throughout the day. So here's your reminder to stay hydrated this summer and give your body the good stuff by drinking clean, filtered water. Make sure to scan the QR code or go to covepure.com/Jackie Flores to get $200 off. Once again, thank you to CovePure for supporting this channel, and with that, let's jump right into today's video. Ana María Serrano Céspedes was born in Mexico on May 5, 2005 to her mom María Jimena and to her dad José Serrano. Jimena, who was originally from Colombia, met José while he was living there temporarily. After getting married, they moved to Atizapán de Zaragoza in the state of Mexico, where they just built this beautiful life together and eventually welcomed two beautiful daughters, Daniela, their firstborn, and then 3 years later, Ana María. From a young age, Ana María was known as Naná by her family, and she just stood out for her wit and her sarcastic sense of humor, which just always filled family gatherings with so much laughter. She was very connected to her family, and she spent lots of time with her grandparents, with her cousins, with her aunts, with her uncles, with everybody. Her cousins remember the playful rivalry that they shared over, which cousin had the most love and attention from their grandparents, and they just had so many cute and just beautiful memories to share of Ana María. Growing up, Jose encouraged both of his daughters to just explore different hobbies and different experiences to help them find their true passions. Ana Maria eventually discovered her love for gymnastics and for basketball, and she dedicated several years to training and actually competing. She also developed a love for baking, so she would put her iPad in the corner of her countertop and just like watch her favorite movies and her favorite shows while making muffins or cookies for her friends and family. And of course, her friends and family loved eating everything that she made. It was just so delicious. She also grew a really strong bond with animals, especially with her beloved family dog, Ginebra. And for a time, she actually dreamed of becoming a veterinarian. I feel like a lot of us did, growing up, like we all wanted to be vets and just save animals. She would volunteer at shelters, feeding and showering the dogs. And although she really did love this, she eventually let that dream go because she realized like she just could not bear to see animals in pain, which I totally understand. Like I said earlier, I really wanted to be a vet, but I was like, I cannot be around a sick dog, a sick cat. Like it's just too much. So instead, her calling began to take shape through a different path. Every year during Holy Week, she traveled to Colombia with her aunts, with her uncles, and with her cousins to take part in Catholic missions in remote villages. There, she helped provide basic health services to underserved communities, such as assisting with simple medical tasks. And, that's when she quickly realized just how much she loved helping others and that her true passion was in medicine. Moved by these experiences, she set her heart on becoming a doctor, specifically a cardiologist, which just, wow, that's just so amazing. She would tell her grandmother that she'd always be there to take care of her heart. Ana Maria graduated from the Alexander von Humboldt German School in Mexico City in the summer of 2023, where she had been studying since childhood, and soon after that, at just 18 years old, she began her medical studies at the Pan American University. Though her journey in medicine had only just begun, she was just so full of ambition and so full of hope and just so excited and ready to dedicate her life to healing others. Unfortunately, though, just 2 months into her journey as a medical student, all of those dreams were tragically cut short. On the night of Tuesday, September 12, 2023, she went to class and returned home to study and just do some homework. It was just another normal day. She was staying alone at the family's house in Mexico because her parents, Jimena and Jose, were actually in Rome, Italy, celebrating their 23rd wedding anniversary. And her older sister, Daniela, was actually living in Germany at the time, and she decided to fly to Italy to join her parents for the weekend. So Ana Maria was left alone, and honestly, staying home alone was something that she had done before without any issues. At 18 years old, she was in college, she was responsible, she was mature, and, perfectly capable of taking care of herself for a couple of days. However, she wasn't completely alone all the time. Her dog, Ginebra, was with her for company, and the woman who helped with the housework would drop by, do the housework and check in as needed, as well as a driver that the family had who would take Ana Maria to and from school. Despite being far away, Jimena kept in constant contact with her daughter throughout the day just to make sure that everything was okay, just like any parent would. Now, their home was in a very safe area with security at the entrance, and it was surrounded by neighbors that they trusted, so there really was no reason for concern. However, something odd did happen that had Ana Maria very confused. The night before, on the morning of September 11th, she had woken up upset after discovering that her laptop had mysteriously gone missing. She had been using it to study the night before, but when she got up to get ready for school, it was nowhere to be found. So Jimena was concerned, of course, and was keeping a closer eye on her daughter, more than usual, just to make sure that everything was okay, since Ana Maria was very upset about this. She asked her daughter, are you sure you didn't leave it at your grandparents' house or with a friend or something like that? But Ana Maria said no, that she was literally studying on it the night before going to bed, so how could it just disappear? She also didn't think that someone had broken in to steal it, since her dog Ginebra didn't bark at all throughout the night, and if someone unknown had entered the home, she would have definitely barked loudly at them like she usually did with strangers. So in the end, there really was no answer, but Jimena just told her to just keep looking for it, and that in the meantime, she could use her dad's laptop to do her schoolwork. However, this wasn't enough. Ana Maria was worried. How could her laptop just disappear if she was literally using it right before going to bed inside her own home? So the next day on September 12th, as Jimena was getting ready for bed earlier than usual in preparation for a tour that they were going to do in Rome the next day, she sent her daughter a message just to check in one last time. Ana Maria told her that everything was fine, that she was just at home studying and doing homework, something she usually did until the very late hours of the night. Reassured, Jimena went to bed peacefully. But at around 2:30 in the morning in Rome, Jimena was abruptly woken up by the sound of her husband's phone buzzing. An unknown number was calling him. She nudged her husband to let him know, like, hey, your phone is ringing, thinking it could be Ana Maria, but when she checked the phone, the call was actually coming from an unknown number. So they decided to just ignore the phone call. However, instead of just going back to sleep, something inside told Jimena to check up on her daughter, despite having spoken to her just hours earlier and confirming that everything was okay. Trusting her gut instincts, Jimena decided to pick up her phone and message Ana Maria asking if everything was okay. After all, it was only the afternoon in Mexico, so yeah, Ana Maria would be awake and able to respond. A few minutes later, Ana Maria replied saying, "Give me a second." Now, this was a strange response and kind of unusual for her tone and not something that she would typically say. Jimena was caught off guard by this and she tried calling her daughter but got no answer. A few minutes later, Jimena got a series of very strange messages. Ana Maria wrote, quote, "I don't like being alone anymore. I can't live like this anymore. I don't want to anymore. Goodbye, Mom. Say bye to Dad for me. I love you." Immediately, Jimena's stomach dropped. She just knew instantly that something was terribly wrong. Those were not Ana Maria's words, not her voice, not her tone, and just not something that she would ever say. Without hesitation, she called one of their neighbors and begged him to go check on her daughter right away. The neighbor was like, "Of course, yes, I will," and he went to the house. He entered through the kitchen door, which was usually left unlocked so that the dog could go in and out freely, and as he stepped inside the home, he called out to Ana Maria, announcing himself so he wouldn't startle her, but there was no response back. He moved through the house looking for any sign of her. And then he reached her bedroom. There, on the floor, he found Ana Maria's lifeless body, a curtain cord wrapped around her neck. He discovered her just 3 minutes after Jimena had asked him to check on her. 3 minutes. How could something so devastating happen so fast? Jimena told him to call the ambulance right away so that they could save her, but unfortunately, it was clear that Ana Maria was already gone. Jimena, Jose, and their other daughter, Daniela, immediately booked the next flight back to Mexico. Now, all of this was going on in the middle of the night in Rome, and the family was just in shock. They were confused, and they were just devastated, with a million unanswered questions going through their head, but they had to focus on getting back home. Through tears, and as they packed and quickly began getting ready to leave, it was all just complete chaos. Like, imagine having to deal with this and having to learn that your daughter is dead in the middle of the night while you're all the way in Rome. Jimena says that one of them was trying to buy the plane tickets and another one of them was dealing with family members both in Mexico and Colombia, while the other was calling the authorities, and it was all just very chaotic. Jimena describes just feeling like, she was on autopilot during that time. She was just numb to it all. She couldn't even process what happened to her daughter. She was just trying to go through the motions to book the flight and get back home. Her assistant, who was in Mexico, stepped in to help organize the funeral since Jimena wasn't physically there to do it. Which, just a quick note, I sometimes see that there is confusion on the fact that funerals happen so quickly in Mexico. So I thought I'd just kind of clarify that real quick because most of the time, the funerals usually take place either that same night or at least the latest within 24 to 48 hours after someone passes away. So yeah, Jimena's assistant was helping her begin organizing the funeral. And then at one point, her assistant called her to tell her that she had booked a hotel for Jimena and, everyone to stay once they flew into Mexico. And Jimena was very confused. She was like, "Wait, why did you book me a hotel?" Like, it hadn't even fully processed yet that she couldn't go stay in her normal family home because it had now been turned into a crime scene. That house had always been the heart of family gatherings, a place full of warmth and laughter. And now, in what felt like a split second, she couldn't even set foot inside. And her daughter, who had once filled that house with joy and laughter and with life, was now just in there, dead. Jimena says that the drive to the airport was just agonizing, and the flight back home was just, it felt like an eternity. They needed to get there now and just find out what happened to their loved one. Back in Mexico, family members and the police arrived at the house and they started analyzing the scene. They realized that there was no forced entry, nothing was stolen, and nothing looked out of place or looked like it was knocked over. However, two things did immediately stand out in the home, specifically in the kitchen. There, they found a black face mask and a navy blue baseball cap. Both were items that didn't belong to her or the family and appeared to have been left behind or forgotten by someone else. Another thing that stood out right away to authorities was the fact that Ana Maria had appeared to have, hung herself with the curtain cords. Now, these cords were very thin and it felt like to them that they could not possibly hold the weight of a body without the blinds being torn down or falling apart. So it was giving them a pretty clear picture that her body was staged by the person that killed her. but they needed to prove it. After her body was removed, an autopsy revealed more that helped back up this theory. She had head trauma, which would have made her unconscious, and after that was when she was strangled with the cord. She just couldn't have done this to herself. She was murdered. Her parents and her sister arrived back in Mexico at around 2 o'clock in the morning, and they checked into a hotel knowing that in just a few hours, they would have to face the unthinkable. That day would be Ana Maria's funeral. Their beautiful daughter, whom they had left alive and was thinking she was safe in their home, was now gone, and now they had to go prepare to bury her and also deal with figuring out who killed her. Not only was preparing for her funeral emotionally heartbreaking, but they couldn't even enter their own home to get proper clothes for the funeral since it was still closed off as a crime scene. Thankfully, the people all around their lives stepped in when they needed it the most. Friends either lent them clothes or gifted them what they needed. One friend even offered them their apartment so that they wouldn't have to stay in a hotel. Jimena says that she was just so deeply moved by the support that she was receiving. She shared that since moving to Mexico, she just had always admired how generous and just warm the culture was, and in that moment, it just felt even deeper. The kindness that they were shown during such a painful time was something that the family will never forget. That same day, on Friday, September 15th, 2023, Ana Maria's funeral was held. Over 400 people gathered to show support for her family, who were forced to say their final goodbyes. Friends and family spoke at the funeral, just sharing such fond and beautiful memories of Ana Maria. Her best friend, Montserrat, spoke out and said that, Ana Maria just had a love for sunflowers and describes her as basically her family and as a safe haven, saying that she was someone whom she could express her emotions to without fear of judgment. She said, quote, "Whenever she arrived at school, she would see me and run to hug me. That gesture made a difference in my day." Ana Maria's sister, Daniela, also spoke out at the funeral, and she remembered a song that her sister loved called De Ellos Aprendí, which talks about 2 stars. So Daniela decided to get 2 stars tattooed on her in her honor. She also promised to take care of Ginebra, Ana Maria's dog that she loved so much, and said, "Rest in peace, little one. We'll look after each other. I'll light candles to guide you on your way. We'll be okay even if it doesn't feel that way right now." Her parents said that their lives will just never be the same and that words cannot fully capture their pain. They spoke directly to friends, urging them not to blame themselves or feel responsible for her death. They emphasized the importance of just never accepting any form of violence, whether physical, verbal, or psychological, and encouraged everyone at the funeral to speak up when something feels wrong. They also encouraged them to trust their instincts, to seek help when needed, and to maintain open, honest, and just straightforward communication with their parents. Lastly, her parents urged everyone to live each and every day with the same passion and just the same brightness that Ana Maria did, reminding them all that she will always be with them. After the funeral, Jimena just felt so utterly lost. She asked herself, now what? I don't want to go back home. Like, how are we supposed to function without Ana Maria? The thought of just returning to the house was unbearable, so much that she actually wished it could be sold as soon as possible. As soon as the investigation cleared the crime scene, she just wanted to sell that house so she wouldn't have to think about it again. Since she didn't want to go back there and, couldn't because of the investigation, she and her husband ended up staying in their apartment their friends had for a while as the investigation was being completed. Authorities did go, all in with this investigation. They were doing everything that they could to find answers, such as interviewing family members, interviewing friends, interviewing neighbors, and combing through any surveillance footage they could find. Through all of this, they finally got something. While looking through surveillance footage from one of the neighbor's security cameras, something caught their attention. They saw that the same car with one person inside had driven past the family's home 3 separate times on the day of the murder. They then identified that that person was Ana Maria's ex-boyfriend, 18-year-old Alan Gil Romero. Now, before we get into anything else about the investigation or what else happened next, let's just quickly talk about who Alan was and how their relationship unfolded. The two had met at the Alexander von Humboldt German School in Mexico City, where they were classmates. Now, their families knew each other very well because most of the families at that school were just like part of a very tight-knit community that would often spend Sundays together, hosting cookouts, or just like hanging out at each other's homes. So their families were very close. They were all part of the same like friend group. So when Ana Maria and Alan started growing closer together, it honestly didn't come as a surprise since they already spent so much time together. Plus, they also kind of had a lot in common. Both were among the top students in their class. They were both athletic and just very well liked by their peers. During a school trip to Germany, their bond deepened and it eventually turned into a romantic relationship. According to classmates, they were actually seen as the perfect couple, and some girls were even jealous of Ana Maria, saying that she was so lucky to be dating Alan because he was the kind of guy that everyone wanted to date and eventually marry. Over the year and a half that they were together, Alan became even more integrated into Ana Maria's life and into her family. He would visit their house at least twice a week. He would join them for dinners, go to family events, and go to birthdays, so he was around all of them all the time. Jimena later said that Alan was just always kind to them. He was the type of son-in-law that many mothers hope for. He was polite, he was helpful around the house, and he was charming. They honestly didn't see any red flags in him and were happy that their daughter had found a good man. However, Ana Maria would be the one to end the relationship. She felt like they had just run their course, and since they were about to graduate from high school, she was starting college and he was headed to a university in Germany, so their lives were just going in different directions, I feel like that's kind of what happens to most relationships after graduating high school. You either go to the same college and try to stay together or try to make long distance work, but he was literally going all the way to Germany and she was staying in Mexico, so it wasn't going to make sense. Ana Maria just wanted to focus on her, future and wanted to focus on this new chapter of her life. She hoped that, yeah, they could remain friends, but Alan didn't want that. He wanted to keep dating her, and like we've seen in so many other cases, when someone doesn't get their way after a breakup, obsession can take over. And that's exactly what happened with Ana Maria. Alan couldn't let her go. He'd send her gifts, he'd cry for her, and beg for them to get back together. Now, at first, it seemed, innocent, like a young man not wanting to lose his first girlfriend and his first love, but it soon became clear that that wasn't the case. He became obsessed with her and got more and more insistent to the point where Ana Maria just got sick of it. She ended up blocking him on social media, and their mutual friends told Alan that he just needed to move on and just kind of forget about it. And for a while, things did seem to kind of calm down until the week before her death. That weekend, there was a party with classmates, which Ana Maria decided not to go to because she knew that Alan would be there and just didn't want to risk running into him. At that party, Alan found out a few things that just did not sit well with him. He found out that Ana Maria had started seeing someone new, which made him upset. Now, she has a right to see whoever she wants to. She ended things with Alan. She can do whatever she wants. On top of that, Alan also found out that her parents were out of the country, which meant that she would be home alone for a while. From that night, just 3 days before her murder, his behavior became noticeably more aggressive. Even though she had blocked him, that didn't stop him. He started sending her threatening emails, demanding that she delete any photos on social media where she appeared with her new man. He also demanded that she end whatever relationship she was starting and get back together with him, or else there would be consequences. He threatened her and blamed this all on her, saying that she brought all of this onto herself. Ana Maria was truly scared, and she did the right thing. She took screenshots of the emails and of all the threats, and she sent them to some of her friends for proof. In one message to her friends, she put, "If anything happens to me, you know who it was." Now, I also just want to be clear here, and I don't think the Familia would ever do this, but this isn't about placing blame on her friends. The reality is when you're close to someone, it can be hard to imagine that things would ever escalate to something tragic. Oftentimes, people hesitate to report things out of fear of overreacting or of making things worse, and maybe that's why Ana Maria's friends never shared this with anyone, never shared this with an adult or with, Ana Maria's parents. But, looking back on it, it is heartbreaking to know that the signs were there and that Ana Maria truly feared for her life. What we can do now is not blame her friends, but try to learn from this and remember that any threat, no matter how small it may seem, deserves to be taken seriously. Now, going back to the investigation, like I said, through the surveillance footage of the neighborhood, they saw that Alan had visited Ana Maria's home 3 separate times on the day of her murder. The first was at 3:55 in the morning, and he was driving a dark gray Kia without a license plate, and he was wearing a black face mask and a blue hat. A blue hat, just like the one that was found inside Ana Maria's house. The second time that he drove past her home was at 1 p.m. and he was driving the same vehicle, but this time it did have a license plate. During this drive-by, he actually got out of the car and approached her home. He was actually met with the woman who helped with the housework, whom we'll just call Sarah for this part of the story. Now, she let him know that Ana Maria wasn't home, but later told investigators that Alan appeared very agitated and that something just seemed off about him. Plus, he asked her, okay, well, what time is Ana Maria coming home and what time are you leaving? Which just rubbed her her the wrong way. Like, why do you need to know when I'm not going to be here? So Sarah decided to just tell him that she didn't know what time she'd be finished with her work, and that the reason he was asking is because he had a gift for Ana Maria, so he would just come back later to give it to her. Now, Sara was like, okay, well, you can just give me the gift and then I'll give it to Ana Maria. To which Alan said, no, it's a surprise. And then just left. Sara was left with a bad taste in her mouth after this interaction, so when Ana Maria got home later that day, she told her what happened, about how her ex had shown up here asking for her. She asked Ana Maria if she wanted her to stay the night with her, but Ana Maria said no, to not worry about it, that it was fine. So Sara left. Then shortly at around 6 p.m., Alan drove by the house for the third and the final time. He parked his car a few streets away from Ana Maria's house and appeared to warm up before running towards her home, wearing a hoodie, a black face mask, and a navy blue hat, which is just so creepy and eerie to think about him doing this. 40 minutes later, he is seen returning to his vehicle, this time wearing a black mask with a skull on it, and investigators believe that it was in this period that Ana Maria was murdered, and that Alan took the time to stage the crime scene and to make it look like this was a suicide. The only other person in the house at the time was Ana Maria. No one else was there. It was now clear as day to investigators that he had killed her. Another thing that really stood out was the fact that Alan was the only person outside of Ana Maria's immediate family who actually showed up to the crime scene not long after her body was found, while police were still there trying to put the pieces together. He showed up at the crime scene, acting shocked and saddened by the news, playing the heartbroken ex-boyfriend and friend role. Now, him showing up did raise some red flags, because how did he know that something had even happened? Authorities had only been at the scene for about 30 minutes and nothing had been made public yet, and no one had notified him that Ana Maria was dead. Investigators also confirmed that the farewell messages that Jimena had received were actually sent from Ana Maria's laptop, which, as a reminder, had mysteriously disappeared in the middle of the night before the day of the murder. Now, it was now believed that Alan had stolen her laptop and kept it in his possession. This meant that Alan now had access to all of her accounts where she was logged into, and that meant that he not only saw all the messages with her new boyfriend, but he could also see her photos and just everything else on her computer. He was also able to see her messages because WhatsApp can be accessed not only on your phone, but you can also access it on your computer, allowing you to send and receive messages from either device. And if you do send a message through WhatsApp on your computer, it doesn't say like, oh, sent from iPhone or sent from MacBook. It just says like, oh, it was sent. So her family now believes that after Alan stole the laptop and was able to see all of her messages with her new boyfriend and just see all of her life, this just further triggered him, and that's why he did what he did. It's horrifying to know that he took the time to write that fake message to Jimena and make it seem like Ana Maria had taken her life and just no longer wanted to live. It's heartbreaking to think about how Jimena now has to know that her daughter's killer was texting her, trying to make it seem like this was all on purpose. Now, this also explained why their dog Ginebra didn't bark the night before when her laptop was stolen. The dog knew the person who was in the house and wasn't alarmed by their presence because, again, Alan had been there so many times before. Another thing that did confuse Jimena and made it seem almost impossible was how Ana Maria could have taken her own life so soon after sending those goodbye messages. The timing just didn't add up. How could she send a final message and then do something like that in just such a short window, in less than 3 minutes? Because again, Ana Maria texted her saying goodbye, and within 3 minutes, the neighbor was there and found her body. So there's just no way it could have happened that quickly. However, now that investigators had confirmed that the messages were sent from Ana Maria's laptop while Alan had it, everything just clicked and just came together. With all that they had gathered, investigators just quickly got an arrest warrant for Alan. However, he was nowhere to be found. They needed to capture him right away. So with the help from Mexico's national agencies, they began tracking him, checking flight records, using surveillance footage, and even flying drones over the homes that he might be hiding in. However, just 4 days after Ana Maria was killed, they found Alan's car in a gated neighborhood, and that same day, he was finally arrested for her murder. A few days later, on Tuesday, September 19th, 2023, a judge ruled to proceed with the case against Alan for Ana Maria's murder. Although her family was devastated that this was the outcome and how someone that they trusted and someone that they had welcomed into their own home could do this to their daughter, someone he claimed to love, they also felt like justice was finally beginning to take shape. But then, after Alan's arrest, nothing really happened. Despite the overwhelming evidence and the family's desperate push for answers, Alan's legal team has continuously delayed the trial, and as of today when I'm filming this, Ana Maria's loved ones are still waiting for justice. It's so frustrating that more than a year has passed and that justice still hasn't been served, that he just gets to keep delaying the trial and keeps hurting the family more and more. What makes this even harder to stomach is the fact that Alan's mother, Erika, has publicly defended him and has even gone so far as to ask for justice for him. In a video statement that she released shortly after his arrest, she said, quote, "Alan is an honorable person, respectful, a good son, an excellent brother, a great friend, and an honor student. I ask you please not to turn this painful case into a media spectacle. Read the news with discretion and question everything you see on social media."
Quien nos conoce sabe que Alan es una persona honorable, respetuosa, buen hijo, excelente hermano, gran amigo, un estudiante con honores. Es deportista de corazón. Alan es un muchacho limpio. Este es un llamado de alerta a todos. Es muy fácil caer en las olas de información que dictan sentencias, juzgan sin elementos. Este caso es muy lamentable. Nos da la oportunidad de voltear a ver a nuestros hijos que nos envían señales de ayuda. Cuestionen todo lo que ven en las redes sociales. Pido justicia. Justicia para Alan.
Now, this isn't really like a spectacle. This is a reality that women all around Mexico and all around the world face every single day at the hands of femicide through their partners, through their exes, or through just, men in general. Now, Erika's statement was met with heavy criticism. People were just stunned that she could go on camera and just publicly call for justice and for compassion for her son when Ana Maria is the one who was brutally killed and Alan is the one in custody with overwhelming evidence linking him to her murder. It's not like people were just saying like, oh, it's Alan, and then police just arrested him because someone said so. Like, no, police dug through evidence, they collected the surveillance footage, and they saw him on camera showing up to her house right before the murder. So it's Ana Maria who deserves justice and compassion, not Alan. Now, even though a lot of people were upset with Erika's statement, Ana Maria's mother, Jimena, did respond to her comments with compassion. She acknowledged, Erika's pain as a mother, saying she understands where she's coming from because she's a mother who loves her son. But she also made it clear that Alan must face the legal process, just like anyone else, for what he did to her daughter. Throughout all of this, and even after the arrest, Jimena and her husband ended up staying in their friend's apartment for a while. When the house was finally reopened about a month later, Jimena still just couldn't bring herself to go back inside and just live in there and just live her normal life as if her daughter hadn't been murdered there. Now, the pain wasn't limited to the family though. Even her dog, Ginebra, was visibly suffering. Jimena says that she just couldn't even bear to see the dog because everything about the dog just reminded her of her daughter. She just had loved animals with all of her heart and had such a close and just beautiful bond with the family dog. Yet for Jimena, facing her dog was just too heartbreaking. So Ana Maria's best friend's family decided to take the dog in for some time, hoping to care for him and just give him some love. But they soon reached back out to Ana Maria's family, saying that they were concerned because it seemed like Ginebra was depressed. He would refuse to eat, he was barely moving, and wouldn't even get up. They didn't know how to help him. When Jimena finally went to go visit the dog, she decided to bring him back to live with her in the apartment. She describes those days as just the two of them, quietly staring at one another, both heartbroken by Ana Maria's absence. And just hearing that breaks my heart. Like, I get emotional and I get tears in my eyes just thinking about Ana Maria's mom and her dog just sitting there and just having to think about how to move forward in life without her. Realizing that the small apartment was no place for the dog, Jimena eventually made the difficult decision to move back into the family's home. But she couldn't live with the memories attached to everything inside, so she cleared out the entire house. She removed all of the old furniture, all of the old belongings, and replaced everything with new and fresh things. During the cleaning, she actually found a handwritten letter from Alan to Ana Maria. In this letter, he actually apologizes to her for being toxic, writing, quote, "I never believed or thought that this moment would come. To me, you are everything, my light, my world, my universe. With you, I learned what it means to fall in love for the first time and to love someone with such passion. Forgive me for hurting you. I never intended to do so. I was very toxic to you. I wanted to control everything to protect you, but it's clear that I caused you a lot of pain. My jealousy was what ended this beautiful relationship. I want to thank you for the beautiful moments we shared together. You are the most beautiful and sincere thing I ever had. I don't expect you to want to get back with me. I would like to be your husband and the father of your children. That is what I wish most, but I also understand that I have been breaking up with you over and over and it's exhausting. I love you, my beautiful girl, and I wish you so much success. Finding that letter and just reading that was devastating and it was heartbreaking. And it was heartbreaking again to know that her daughter was going through this without them even knowing, and how much she was probably suffering at the hands of Alan's, toxicness. Now, people have analyzed this letter and they state that this letter revealed 5 clear signs of abuse: a need for control, excessive jealousy, disregard for consent or autonomy, frequent mood swings, and isolation. Jimena just wishes that she had found this letter earlier because maybe she could have stopped all of this from happening. Also, just trying to continue life in that house, regardless of the physical changes that they made, was just too much. Everything reminded Jimena of her daughter, so after some time, she decided to just sell the house altogether. However, there were some things that she just simply couldn't part with. Some of Ana Maria's items, such as photographs, and especially her cherished Pandora charm bracelet. That bracelet had countless charms that told the story of Ana Maria's life and the story of her passions. She had these charms of animals, of people biking, of elephants, of pandas, and just of so many beautiful things. And when Jimena looks at this charm bracelet, she just feels so much closer to her daughter. Jimena says that she also often dreams with Ana Maria. In one particular dream, she recalls her saying goodbye to her. And Jimena was startled, seeing her daughter in her dream. And she asked her, where have you been? Ana Maria said to her in the dream, I don't know why everyone keeps saying they miss me. I've just been busy. And in the dream, Jimena grabbed her hand and told her that she was going to miss her so much, but Ana Maria told her that she would always be with her and to not worry about her. Jimena woke up from this dream in tears, but also with a sense of peace that she hadn't felt in a long time. It was as if Ana Maria had truly been there, in her room, letting her mom know that she wasn't alone and that she was okay. As time passed, Jimena, Jose, and Daniela had begun seeing separate therapists to help with their grief. They would often cry with each other, allowing themselves to go through the emotions that they were feeling with support. Jimena says that she would try to put on this brave face to everyone else and make it seem like, yeah, she's okay, but in private, with the comfort of her husband and of her daughter, she would allow herself to fully cry and just feel all of the emotions of her entire world just being turned upside down. She also began reading countless books about understanding death, which just truly helped her begin to heal. She says that she often says that instead of asking herself, why did her daughter die? She's learned to ask, what can come from this? What purpose can I give this pain? And when people ask her how she managed to shift this mindset in the middle of such pain, she goes back to something that happened the very next day after Ana Maria's death. It was at the funeral. And in the middle of her shock and grief, the director of Ana Maria's school sat down beside her to comfort her. He told her something that just stuck with her and helped her adopt this new mindset. He said, quote, in the tragedies I've witnessed, the people who find a way forward are the ones who ask themselves, what can come from this instead of why? So in those early days, Jimena says that she was just numb, completely consumed by grief and just unable to think clearly. But that phrase just never left her. She just knew that she had to find a reason and a purpose for waking up every single day and why she, her husband, and her eldest daughter were still here. So from that moment on, she made it her mission to search for it. She learned that on average, more than 12 women are murdered every single day in Mexico. Now, that's not including victims of homicide. And she also learned that the most dangerous place for a woman in the country is actually inside her own home. This was just a terrifying truth that she didn't realize before this. As Ana Maria's family started learning more, they just realized how difficult it is to find clear, trustworthy, and accessible information about gender-based violence in Mexico. Prevention tools are hard to find, support systems are confusing or just completely out of reach, and the road to justice is often slow, painful, and just full of barriers. So in honor of Ana Maria, Jimena decided to create something that could help change that, and that would become the Fundación Naná, named after the nickname her family gave her. The foundation is her way of keeping Ana Maria's voice alive while fighting to make sure that what happened to her doesn't continue to happen to others. I will have the foundation linked down below, as well as a study that the foundation conducted with another organization called Mexicanos Primero, where they examine dating violence from a gender perspective. They review relevant Mexican laws and school-based prevention policies, and And they also provide practical tools for adolescents, for educators, and for families to help them detect and prevent it. Its goal is to raise awareness and promote respectful, equal, and healthy relationships. Within the study, there's a questionnaire designed for adolescents to help them identify red flags or signs of violence in their relationships. The questionnaire was developed using the National Polytechnic Institute's violence meter, which is divided into 3 scales of behavior that grow increasingly dangerous. The goal is to create a teen-friendly tool with simple, clear language and specific questions for each type of violence to make it easier to spot warning signs. After completing the questionnaire, teens get recommendations based on their score, but schools also need to be trained and ready, and they need to have staff on there to support them properly. Heuermann emphasized just how vital it is for teens and young adults to recognize early warning signs of abuse versus thinking that certain behavior is just like normal and just like it doesn't matter. And it's also so important for teens to have access to and know what steps to take afterwards. She is actively advocating for this questionnaire to be distributed in all schools to keep educating young people and just empowering them to protect themselves. And I think that what she's doing is just so amazing and so beautiful. Now, despite the case and the trial being delayed, Heuermann is still putting pressure on the justice system for the trial to begin. This September of 2025 will be 2 years since Ana María was taken in such a devastating and just horrifying way, and there is still no signs of justice. She would be 20 years old. She should have celebrated that milestone, the beginning of a new chapter, a new decade of her life, but now she never gets a chance to. And every year, her parents now have to relive the most tragic moment of their life on their wedding anniversary. It's just all too much. In an interview earlier this year, Heuermann opened up about how time has slowly helped her process her emotions towards Alan, saying that she has actually forgiven him and feels sorry for him. She said that because even on her worst days when she's grieving and just heartbroken, she can still go outside, breathe fresh air, watch the sunrise, see the hummingbirds flying around, and is free. But Alan, he doesn't have that privilege. He's stuck. He's locked up in a prison cell, and that's where he'll stay. She also revealed something particularly painful that she remembered about her daughter. She had always warned Ana María to be cautious at bars, to watch her drink carefully, to stay vigilant and be safe. But never in her worst fears did she imagine that she would have to tell her daughter to protect herself from the one person who was supposed to stand beside her, love her, and protect her boyfriend. Earlier this year, she also shared a video of herself reading a letter that she wrote for Ana María, and it's one of the most heartbreaking things that I've ever read. It's a little bit lengthy, but I'll put the full letter here on the screen if you guys want to pause and read it, because it truly made me tear up, and it made me angry at the fact that Ana María just isn't here today. So sad to think about the unimaginable pain that her family is going through and how all of this happened because she broke up with someone. Like, it's just so unfair. So yeah, I will put the letter here on the screen if you guys want to pause and read it. I'll just read like the beginning portion for you guys, but it's too much. The letter reads, quote, "If I had known that you weren't happy with your boyfriend, that he kept breaking up with you over and over and you cried in silence, that he belittled you, blamed you for his problems, tried to control everything you did, and got jealous of anyone who crossed your path, that when he drank, he'd grab you roughly, that he'd try to isolate you from your friends and call you a slut when you hugged another guy, that you had episodes of bulimia because of the stress, that you let him win every argument just to avoid provoking him, that you avoided going out with your friends so he wouldn't get upset, or that you stopped telling them what was going on so they wouldn't worry, that you tried to calm him down when he got angry so he wouldn't hurt you, that you blamed yourself for what he was going through, that you minimized his outbursts or justified them because he's supposedly still hurt by his parents' separation, that he would call or text you hundreds of times when he didn't know where you were, or that he would apologize after every humiliation with expensive gifts, that when you made the decision to leave him, you never wanted to be with him, so you kept replying to his messages or agreed to talk even when he was threatening you, that up until the very last minute you tried to negotiate to make him see that you could be friends, and you truly believed that you could calm him down before he hurt you anymore. If I had known all of that, I would have been the shoulder you could cry on. I would have told you more often how much you were worth. I would have reminded you that you were never responsible for anyone else's happiness. I would have taken you to every party your friends invited you to. I would have let you ride the zip line over Acapulco Bay, or even gone skydiving with you if that's what you wanted. I would have told you I loved you so many times you would have gotten tired of hearing it. I would have stayed in bed with you longer in the mornings, not caring if you were late to school. I would have learned more of your favorite songs just so that we could sing them together in the car. I would have let you make more gin cocktails, wear more low-cut tops and even shorter skirts. We would have gone to the beach more often to collect seashells, and I would have let you tan without sunscreen. I would have eaten every cookie you baked for me without worrying about my figure. and I would have bought you more stuffed animals even if they didn't fit in your room anymore. And most of all, I would have told you it was never your fault. But neither you nor anyone else told me what you were going through. And when you finally broke up with him, I felt like it was the right thing, but without knowing the full context, it was almost impossible to know that he could have hurt you even more. They say what ifs don't exist, but there's not a day that goes by where I don't think about everything I could have done. If only I had known. Ana Maria, by choosing your fate, you gave the rest of us women a chance at the future. I ended up just reading the entire letter to you guys because it was just so beautiful, and it just se te hace un nudo en la garganta. Like I can't hold back tears when reading that and listening to that letter because it's just too much, you guys. Like it breaks my heart that Ana Maria was going through this and that her mom didn't know, and now that her mom does know, she's just thinking about all the what ifs and wondering like, what could I have done to help my daughter? But again, it's no one's fault. It's not her friend's fault. It's not the mom's fault. It's no one's fault. I mean, Alan had no right to take Ana Maria's life away. And it's just devastating to hear that coming from a mother who wishes she could have done something to save her daughter, to wish that she had just known what was happening and just stopped it. It makes me sad. It makes me sad thinking about, my mother going through something like this. Or, if I become a parent one day, like your goal as a parent is to just want to protect your child as much as you can. And to hear Jimena hurting and just wondering, could she have done something to save her daughter? It breaks your heart. It just goes to show that anyone going through this, someone cares and someone is willing to help you. Ana Maria was so loved and she had an incredibly bright future ahead of her, and she was only 18 years old. 18 years old, like she was so young. She had her entire life ahead of her and everything was stolen from her by someone who claimed to love her. She was simply living her day as usual, studying, doing homework, working towards a bright future for herself, and she was murdered inside her family's home. Her story is just necessary to share, and I hope that by sharing it alongside other cases like this, we can all learn and spread more awareness of this issue. And like her mom says, teens and young adults need to be hyper aware of toxic and abusive signs in a relationship. It can help save lives and save themselves and their families so much pain, grief, and heartbreak. Love should never hurt, and I know you might think it won't happen to you or someone that you know, but you can never be too sure because it happens more often than it should. So let's just be there for each other. Let's stay educated, let's stay aware, and always know that you just deserve love and you deserve respect. Like I said, I will be leaving Ana Maria's foundation and her mom's Instagram page where she shares updates linked down below, as well as resources for anyone experiencing any type of abuse in their relationships. Help is always available. I hope that justice for Ana Maria is served soon, and as soon as there are any updates in the trial, I will be sure to let you guys know. I hope that she is resting peacefully, and my heart and condolences go out to her family. I hope that they continue to find strength, healing, and just purpose, like Jimena said, through this tragedy. I know this was a very difficult case to listen to. I'm telling you, I cried a lot while doing the research for this case and while filming this video, and just having to put myself in Jimena's shoes and the family's shoes and think about like something like this happening to my loved one and just how unfair it is. It was just a really difficult case to talk about, and like I've said before, it's exhausting, honestly, hearing this over and over again, how this happens so often to women and how so many men just think that they have the right to take our lives away. I don't understand it. I don't get it, and I'm tired of hearing about it. I hope that the Fundación Naná continues to make such a positive impact and that people continue to learn more about this, about the signs of abuse, and about what to do if you or someone you know is going through this. I would love to know what you guys think about this down below, and yeah, thank you guys so much for being here. If you guys haven't watched my last video, I will have that link down below for you guys to check out, and I will also have my other socials and my second channel. Thank you guys again so much for being here, for listening to Ana Maria's story, and for continuing to support our mission of spreading awareness together. Stay safe, familia, and I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, everyone.